Welcome in and thank you for coming to the Benjamin Button School.
Thank you very much.
Now this interview will be about multicultural aspects. Can you define multiculturalism?
Well, most people define multiculturalism as the acceptance and celebration of ethnic and cultural diversity within society. Now, originally in Australia, it was expected immigrants to Australia assimilate, leaving their old culture behind. Later on in our history, they were asked to integrate, where they could celebrate their culture, but within their own closed doors and not in the social sphere. Also, multiculturalism is also extended to taking a person's gender, exceptionalities, interests, sexualities and socio-economic background as well.
Why is this important?
Well, it is important to have an awareness of the cultural diversity within your classroom, so you challenge deterministic attitudes and support an equity and equality within the classroom and help each individual student. It is also important within a global context for students and society in general to have an appreciation of different cultural contexts and interact and work within a harmonious and productive way.
Can you expand on this?
Well, firstly, despite the rhetoric by governments of equality of education over the last 30 years, we are finding this does not translate within school reality. Students, for example, from a low socio-economic background have poorer academic results and drop out of school 5 times more than those in the higher brackets. This is despite their equal intellectual ability. There are less university enrolments with students from a low socio-economic background, which some claim relates to teachers determining that students' future is better supported by teaching vocational skills rather than learning academic knowledge. Other cultural examples include the fact that boys may be more likely to be disciplined within the classroom or considered learning disabled than girls, a result which is much higher if the child is from a minority ethnic group. And people of different ethnic origin are less represented within the texts of the school or the school staff, like teachers, that aim to support them. And lastly, racism within schools and society is prevalent, and teachers have a central role in fostering a respect and appreciation of multiculturalism, which is a wonderful reality within Australia and the world today. Cultural appreciation is not just an ideal, but a necessity.
Can you give me an example of your experience in integrating multicultural elements within schools, including your ideas about critical pedagogy?
Look, first let me define critical pedagogy. Now, critical pedagogy considers how education can provide individuals with the tools to better themselves and strengthen democracy, to create a more egalitarian and just society, and thus to deploy education in a process of progressive social change. Here the focus is on a student-centred approach, where students are invited to think critically about some issue, to co-develop a session with the expert or teacher, and to construct peer relations instead of authority-dependent relations.
Students pretending to be the teacher. That sounds interesting.
Now, with relation to implementing it in the classroom, it appears on 2 levels, through classroom management and curriculum integration. Within classroom management, I would ideally start with identifying my own cultural values and beliefs and evaluating how this impacts the classroom ethos. Do I include culturally rich tasks or texts, sustained from stereotyping students, and at the same time support each student with necessary resources to improve their school life, such as Aboriginal education officers to assist Aboriginal students? Do I stamp out racism and stereotyping when it occurs? Now, within the curriculum integration, it can happen on 4 levels following Banks' model of content integration. On level 1 is the contribution approach, which highlights cultural heroes, holidays and discrete cultural elements. At the Australian International School, where I worked and my son goes to, they celebrate Hari Raya, Deepavali and Chinese New Year, as well as Australia Day. You also may explore cultural texts such as Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes, a Japanese text. On level 2, the additive approach, added-on units or weekly inquiries into culture are explored. At AIS, the Australian International School, students, for example, celebrated United Nations Peace Day, and that week included mother tongue parent presentations, multicultural food, and children dressing up and writing reports on other cultures from around the world. Now on level 3, the transformation approach, the curriculum includes a multicultural unit explored in great detail. At the Australian school, my son, for example, is now doing a 7-week unit of inquiry relating to how culture, beliefs and values can be reflected in the way in which people live. Activities include having students define their own culture, a pretty hard examination for any adult, I assume. On level 4, the social action approach, students step up their inquiry into culture by making decisions with their learning and implement actions to solve social issues. An example I have relates to the Pakistani 14-year-old Malala Yousafzai, who stood up to the Taliban in Pakistan about 6 or 7 months ago. She stood up in relation to education for girls in that country and was shot, which is a horrible result. An example of critical pedagogy in itself, her story inspired a Year 4 class within my year to reach out and show support. Using the Sadako and the 1,000 paper cranes, the Japanese text previously exampled in stage 1, they, without any prompting from the teacher, led a campaign to have all Year 4 students make these 1,000 cranes and then organise it to send it to her as a way of supporting her recovery and her ideals. Now that's brilliant stuff.
Yes indeed, and thanks for your time today.